folks. If you're looking for a way to add natural sculptural focal point to your garden or backyard, a stone cairn is a beautiful and timeless choice. But unlike the stacked stones that you see when you're on the hiking trails, a permanent garden cairn, it needs to be secure, especially if there's children or pets nearby. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I built this 3-foot cairn behind my pool here using rebar to safety pin it together and also to the ground. So the first step in building a stone cairn is choosing and preparing your rocks. I had a pile of leftover rocks on my property from when the coping stonework was done on the back edge of my pool. And basically I was going to put the stone cairn right behind that coping. So because these stones, they match nicely in color and texture, I thought it would make them ideal for a stone garden feature. I sorted through this pile and I basically selected rocks that gradually descended in size, from large base rocks all the way up to smaller ones that ended in the top. And I wanted the finished cairn to be about 3 foot tall, which was tall enough to stand out behind lower growing flowers that are along that pool coping edge. Now, while sorting out the rocks, I found a very unique heart-shaped rock, and I knew it would just make a perfect topper. The second step was to drill the rocks because I wanted to make the cairn safe and secure. I decided from the get-go that I was going to run a rod, a vertical length of rod through the center of the stack, rebar or threaded rod, and I felt that this would keep the stones aligned and prevent them from tipping. So I used an SDS rotary hammer drill, and I drilled a pilot hole through each rock that I decided I was going to use. First, I used a 3/8" masonry bit as a pilot bit, and then I followed up with a 5" masonry bit to widen the hole. The 5/8" bit gave a large enough hole and gave me enough clearance to slide the rocks down over 1/2" rebar during assembly. Step 3 was to basically level and build off of a base, a foundation, right? So with all the rocks pre-drilled and drilled, I moved them to the site behind the pool where I was going to begin building my cairn. The first step basically was to set the biggest stone I had, which was going to be my foundation, and get it solidly level on the ground. And I placed this large base rock where I wanted the cairn to start, and I leveled it, and then I basically hammered rebar vertically into the ground through the hole using a 3-pound hammer. I also used a small torpedo level with a magnet on the rebar, and basically that kind of allowed me to make sure that rebar stayed plumb throughout the build. The fourth step was to actually stack the stones, the final kind of approach. One by one, I slid the drilled rocks down over the rebar, adjusting their orientation for the most pleasing looking and best symmetry. This part takes some patience. There's an art to finding which rocks fit best together, both visually and structurally. I went back and forth to that rock pile a couple of different times and re-drilled a few rocks and did a few things, swapping out stones. In some cases, I even used a 3-pound hammer to chip off a little excess of a stone or try to help create a flatter surface so the rocks would sit more securely or flatter. My goal the whole time was just to kind of, if I was going to try to modify a stone, was to modify in such a way that it looked natural but also was stable in appearance. The fifth and final step was to set the top stone, the top rock, which was that heart stone I mentioned. So when I reached the top of the stack, I basically drilled a 3-inch deep hole through the bottom of the heart-shaped capstone. I did not drill through it. I measured and cut the rebar. So I basically drilled 3 inches into the heart stone, measured that depth of hole, and then I cut the rebar to that depth. And then I used a grinder with a metal cutoff disc so that I could cut the rebar perfectly and ensure a snug fit into that heart stone, and allowing the heart rock to kind of sit securely and cleanly on top of the stone below it, basically securing its final resting point. I will note, I went back and forth on whether I was going to use 1/2" rebar, which I already had on hand, or galvanized or maybe stainless steel threaded rod. Now, using threaded rod would have required me to drill all the way through that heart stone, securing it at the top with a washer and a nut, right? So While that may have offered a tighter and possibly safer connection, I felt that the visible rod protruding through the top of that heartstone would absolutely detract from aesthetics. Maybe if it wasn't a heartstone, it was just a flat rock, it'd be okay. But in the end, I chose rebar, one, because I had it on hand, and two, I just felt it was a cleaner look. I didn't want anything poking through that heart. And I could always epoxy that heartstone down later with, an epoxy or something if needed. So guys, look, to conclude, the finished result I felt was visually striking. I ended up with a 3-foot-ish tall stone cairn that serves as both a garden sculpture and a tribute to the beautiful materials already around the pool and the coping of the pool. And thanks to the rebar running through the stone, the core of the stone, it's safely anchored and there's no risk of it topping over, onto curious kids or pets. So whether you're building a cairn as a decorative feature or a symbolic marker, this approach combines craftsmanship with safety, giving your garden a durable and meaningful new addition. I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. It was a short one. I had a lot of fun. I thought about doing the video kind of halfway through it, so I started filming. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and please consider subscribing. See you at the next video.